Hey friends, welcome back to Guess What? Compliance can be simple. I'm your host, Dr. Natasha Guess. And if you're new here, welcome. If you've been listening for a while, thank you so much for joining me. Now, this podcast exists because I believe compliance shouldn't feel overwhelming. And my goal is to help healthcare leaders make compliance simple, practical, and just part of how their organization runs every day. Today's episode starts with one simple question. Could this happen in your practice? Now, going forward, each week we'll look at a real enforcement case, and we're going to do that to understand what happened, what regulators found, and what you can do to lower your own risk of becoming the next story. Let's get into today's episode. One sentence. That's really all it takes. And one sentence I hear over and over when I talk with practice owners is, we're too small for that. Too small for a compliance officer, too small for formal monitoring, too small for documented oversight, and too small to worry about OCR. Now, if you've ever thought that, you're not alone. But let me tell you about a behavioral health organization that probably thought something pretty similar. Earlier this year, the Office of Civil Rights announced a settlement with Deer Oaks, a behavioral health solution. Now, after investigating two security incidents that affected the PHI of more than 171,000 individuals, OCR found that the organization failed to conduct an accurate and thorough risk analysis for them to identify potential risk and vulnerabilities to EPHI, electronic protected health information. Settlement required a $225,000 payment and a 2-year corrective action plan with federal oversight. Now, most people stop right there. They hear risk analysis, they hear 225,000, they hear corrective action plan. But that's not actually the lesson I want you to walk away with today. When I read this enforcement action, I wasn't thinking about cybersecurity. I was thinking about leadership. Because a risk analysis doesn't just happen on its own. Someone has to own it, someone has to schedule it, someone has to review it, and someone has to decide which risk gets addressed first. That's a system. And systems need ownership. One of the biggest misconceptions I see in small and mid-sized healthcare practices is thinking that compliance belongs to one person. The office manager, the HIPAA privacy officer, the practice administrator, or the owner. But compliance doesn't actually work that way. Compliance follows the work. Let's think about your practice for a second. Who owns patient intake? Who owns billing? Who owns vendor relationships? Who approves new software? Who manages your employee onboarding? And who removes system access when someone leaves? Those aren't just operational responsibilities. They're compliance responsibilities. And the problem that I see isn't that small practices don't have people doing the work. The problem is that nobody's formally connected compliance accountability to those roles. And that's exactly where practices become vulnerable. Here's what I want every healthcare leader to remember. You don't need a compliance department to have a defensible compliance operation. You need ownership, you need accountability, and you need documentation. And guess what? You need leadership. The practices I work with aren't hospitals with dozens of compliance professionals on staff. They're behavioral health practices, physician groups, therapy practices, dental offices, home health agencies, lean teams. And lean teams can absolutely build strong compliance operations. And it's not by making compliance another person's job, but by making compliance part of everyone's job. So here's today's question. If I ask every person on your leadership team, what compliance responsibility belongs to you? Would they actually know the answer? Or would everyone assume someone else is handling it? Because that's exactly what happens in a lot of practices. Everyone believes compliance belongs to someone else until regulators show up. So I have a challenge for you this week. Take out a blank sheet of paper and write down your 10 highest risk operational areas. Patient intake, billing, privacy, security, vendor management, incidents response, training, access management, or documentation, or AI. And then I want you to write one name beside each, not a department, not a committee, one person. And if you can't assign ownership, you've just found your first operational compliance gap. Now, if today's episode changed how you think about compliance ownership, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another healthcare leader. And if you're not confident your compliance operations would hold up under regulatory scrutiny today, don't wait for an investigation to expose the gaps. I have the Compliance Confidence Assessment tool, which will help you find operational weaknesses before they become audit findings or enforcement actions or costly disruptions. You'll get a personalized compliance risk score and a practical action plan built specifically for small and mid-sized healthcare organizations. You'll find a link to that in today's show notes. Now remember, what regulators find tomorrow is usually decided by the operational choices leaders make today. Keep it simple, stay compliant, and protect your patients. I'm Dr. Natasha Guess, and thank you for listening to Guess What? Compliance can be simple. I'll see you next time.